Hi everyone! So today we'll be taking a look at cerulean blue made with PB35. Now cerulean blue does come in a variety of choices for you to choose from. This is the genuine cerulean blue made with PB35. Sometimes you can get cerulean blue made with PB36 or even cerulean blue hue, which doesn't granulate, and those are usually phthalo blues mixed with a white or an opaque filler. But today we'll be taking a look at PB35, which granulates and is the genuine version of those other cerulean blue hues. And I have 4 brands to show you today. The first one is Rembrandt, and then Holbein, and we have White Nights and Winsor&Newton. So I actually recently swatched out Winsor&Newton's dot card, and they do have 2 cerulean blue shades. Both of them are made with PB35, and this one's the red shade, this is the blue shade. Oh, sorry, just no shades, just cerulean blue. And the one I'll be showing you here today is this one, 137 Cerulean Blue. As for White Nights, the one I have here is just the cerulean blue made with PB35. This is the Cobalt Azure Blue PB36, so that's different. So just letting you know, the White Nights one that I'm showing today is PB35. All right, let's get into it. Let me just doop doop. Is that might be a bit too much? It's okay. We shall see. Holbein. So out of these 4, I've actually painted a lot with Rembrandt, Holbein, and White Nights. Winsor&Newton is rather new to me. Thank you, kind subscriber who sent this to me. So far, from my experience swatching them all out, they're pretty similar in how they re-wet from pans and whatnot, so that's why I just went ahead and used tubes today. I'll be using this Rosemary Red Dot Collection Quill size 10-0. I've really been liking these rosemary brushes. Oh, that's a bit too much. Here we go. There we go. Beautiful color. Beautiful granulation. Next we have Holbein. I actually prefer Holbeins over Rembrandts, and that's because I had been using Rembrandts for a while. And oh, the reason I got Holbein's version is actually because of Dr. Otto Kano. I saw her cerulean blue comparison video a while ago, a long time ago actually, and cerulean blue was the one that caught my eye from her video. And you know what? I'm very satisfied with what I got. So I'm really happy about that. Right away we could kind of see that Rembrandt's is duller than Holbein's, and Holbein's seems to lean a bit more red. Next we have White Nights, which is in this pan here. So as the White Nights is reactivating, I want to talk about these 2 for a bit. Both of these feel very nice and pigmented and don't seem to have a lot of filler in it. However, the White Nights one we're about to see, right away from when I first started using it in the beginning, I felt like there's this sort of milkiness to it. And I'm not sure if you guys could see, but after using it for a while, I do feel like it definitely has more, it's more opaque than Rembrandt's and Holbein's. It's okay on its own. I'm not sure if you could see that. See? It's a bit more opaque. It doesn't seem to be as transparent, I'd say. Like, there's that milkiness, you know? There's that milkiness to it, similar to how some of Lucas's paints have this milkiness, chalky opaqueness to it. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you guys have white nights. Can you comment below if you feel the same with White Knight's Cerulean Blue? I think it would be really interesting to exchange experiences or exchange observations. Okay, right now I could definitely see that it looks as if there's white added into it. I think it'll look better once it dries. I will say though, with its milkiness and whatnot that I'm talking about, I've never had an issue with using it at all. I should mention that I normally use Cerulean Blue for my skies. I do use it for mixes as well, but I wouldn't say it's like my go-to pigment to mix things with. Here we have Winsor & Newton's. Yeah, I'll let that sit for a bit. So yeah, with White Knight's version, my opinion on it is that I love it. I can use it for, I like using it alone in skies, just, you know, on its own. However, once it comes to mixes, mixing it with other colors, especially mixing it with other opaque colors like Indian Red or Caput Mortem, you know, those types of more opaque colors that's not transparent, I find that it starts becoming muddy, and I don't really like that, personally. I prefer mixing with either Rembrandt or Holbein much more, because they seem to make cleaner mixes, if you know what I mean. All right, Winsor & Newton's. All of these seem slightly different to each other, just very slight. I'd say this one is probably the greenest of them all. That's very interesting. Okay, I'm gonna wait for these to completely dry and then we'll come back to compare them, how they differ and whatnot. Right now I'm really liking Winsor & Newton's granulation right here, whereas the others does granulate but isn't as prominent as this one. As for opacity, White Knight's definitely gets #1 in being very opaque. Rembrandt's, Holbein's, and Winsor & Newton seems to be rather okay. As it's a cerulean blue pigment, it is, I'd say, semi-opaque, so it's not completely transparent, but much more so than White Knight's. White Knight's does feel like there's more filler somehow. Okay, let's wait for these to dry. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. The swatches have completely dried. And I'll first talk about the granulation. All of them granulate pretty well. As I've mentioned, all these three I've used extensively, and all of them granulate well. Despite what you see here, where you might not be able to see the granulation as much as Winsor & Newton's, which seems a bit more prominent here, but all of them do granulate on paper. Holbein's may be on the finer end, but it does granulate, and both on itself as well as in mixes, they do really well. And even I haven't used Winsor & Newton's as much as these three, but judging from the granulation here, I'm sure it'll do well in mixes as well. Now, as for the hue, this is where it gets a bit tricky. Let me talk about White Nights first. Okay, so White Nights, it's the only one where I would say, if we're not talking about fillers and whatnot, it looks to be like it has white added into it, like pigment white. Because it's not a color on its own, and the opaqueness, it feels like a pastel cerulean blue. They do say it's PB35, so I'm inclined to think that it is PB35, but has an opaque filler in it, because from my experience with other brands, like Van Gogh, let's say, their Van Gogh's PR122, which is, I think, their rose color. I contacted them once asking about it, and they said it looks like that because they use, it's a single pigment PR122, but they add an opaque filler, which it may come across as if white was mixed into it. So that's why I feel like White Nights may have an opaque filler in it, making it look more pastel than the other ones. As for Rembrandts, Holbeins, and Winsor & Newtons, I'd say all of them they behave all pretty similarly in that they're pigmented, they granulate. I'd say Holbeins and Winsor & Newtons is more pigmented than Rembrandt's. That's just from my personal experience with re-wetting it and all that. I know I used the tube today, so that's a bit difficult to show you. As for hue, because White Nights has that like white added into it, it's a bit hard to tell where it lies on the scale. But for sure, Holbein's is the warmest, most red leaning, and then followed by Rembrandt. And the last one would be Winsor & Newton's, that is the most green. If I really had to say which hue White Nights is, I'd say it's more on the greener end of the spectrum than on the red end with Holbein. So it's more of like around Rembrandt and Winsor & Newton. Honestly, it's really hard to tell because it has that white factor inside. And I also wanted to show you the Winsor & Newton's, the other red shade. So here we have my dot card. And this is Winsor & Newton. The one we swatched out here is Cerulean Blue, this one. And this red shade, I don't know if the video has gone up yet of me swatching this out, but basically when I swatched out this Cerulean Blue red shade, this is Winsor & Newton's, I knew right away that this was the same as Holbein's, because I remember when I first swatched out Holbein and tried it, it was very distinct because, you know, I used to paint with ones on the greener end, so when I got Holbein's, it was like a whole different world. The Cerulean Blue red shade is the same hue as Holbein's. So if you have one or the other, I'm just letting you know that that's what it is. Or like if you like Holbein's hue compared to all these, but you know, you're like, but Holbein isn't available where I am, well, Winsor & Newton's is the same if you want to get that. All right, I think that's all I have to say today. If you have any questions, or if you have your collection of PB35s, do let me know down below how they compare and which one do you think is your favorite. Has this video made you feel like you want to try another PB35? That would be interesting. Personally, I'd say my favorite out of the whole bunch is Holbein's for now, but that's because of the hue of it that I prefer. However, as I've mentioned, I've used these three extensively, and I'm happy to use any of them. And I'm sure Winsor & Newton's I'll like using as well, since that granulation is so beautiful right there. And that's it for today. I think for next time, I'll swatch out some Cerulean Blues made with PB36, so maybe you'll have more of an idea whether you like PB35 or should you go for PB36 more. All right, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to drink lots of water and stay hydrated.